Welcome to the channel Old Glory Coins. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people glance at quarters without a second thought, tossing them into parking meters or leaving them forgotten in cup holders. But what they don't realize is that some of these seemingly ordinary coins are hiding fortunes that could change everything. Today, we're diving deep into a world where a simple quarter from 1966 isn't just 25 cents. It's a gateway to extraordinary wealth, and by the time we're done here, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. This 1966 Washington quarter, sitting quietly in circulation, has reached values that would make your head spin, with the absolute finest specimens commanding prices up to $35 million. Yes, you heard that right. $35 million for a quarter that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. But here's where it gets even more exciting. This is just the beginning, because we've got 3 more quarters coming up that are worth even more than this one, including one that's valued at a price so astronomical it'll make this seem like pocket change. So you absolutely need to stick around until the very end, because the values we're about to reveal will blow your mind, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's talk about why this 1966 Washington quarter has become such a phenomenon in the numismatic world. The year 1966 was unique in American coinage history. It was right in the middle of the great silver shortage that had gripped the nation, and the U.S. Mint was scrambling to meet the massive demand for circulating coins while simultaneously transitioning away from silver content. You see, from 1932 through 1964, Washington quarters were struck with 90% silver, making them valuable not just as collectibles, but as precious metal investments. But in 1965, everything changed. The mint switched to a copper-nickel clad composition, eliminating the silver entirely, which meant that 1966 quarters were among the first full years of production using this new composition. But here's the twist. During this chaotic transition period, the mint was operating under incredible pressure, running presses around the clock at facilities in Philadelphia and Denver. And whenever you have that kind of rush production, mistakes happen. And oh, did they happen? The 1966 Washington quarter is famous among collectors for several extraordinary error varieties that make certain specimens worth absolute fortunes. One of the most sought-after errors is the SMS-like strike. You see, in 1966, the mint produced special mint sets instead of the traditional proof sets they'd been making for decades, and these SMS coins had a distinctive satin finish that was different from both regular business strikes and proofs. However, some regular circulation quarters from 1966 were accidentally struck with dies that had been specially prepared, giving them characteristics that fell somewhere between a standard strike and an SMS coin. These specimens have razor-sharp details, almost mirror-like fields, and an overall appearance that makes them stand out dramatically from typical 1966 quarters. And when collectors discovered these anomalies, the race was on. Another incredible variety that sends collectors into a frenzy is the double die obverse. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin is accidentally impressed twice at slightly different angles during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect on the design elements. On the 1966 Washington quarter, the most dramatic examples show doubling on the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," as well as on Washington's profile itself. Imagine holding a quarter where you can actually see 2 distinct impressions of the lettering, almost like a ghostly shadow behind each letter. That's what makes these coins so visually stunning and so incredibly valuable. But wait, there's more. The missing clad layer error is perhaps the most dramatic of all. Remember, these new clad quarters were made by bonding copper-nickel outer layers to a pure copper core, but sometimes during the manufacturing process, one of those outer layers simply didn't adhere properly, and when the coin was struck, ended up missing part or all of its clad layer on one side. These error coins often weigh less than normal quarters. They have a completely different color on the affected side, and they're so rare that collectors will pay astronomical prices to own one. We're talking about coins that might weigh just 5 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams, and that tiny difference represents a massive rarity. Now, here's something that'll really get your heart racing. Condition is everything when it comes to the value of these 1966 quarters. In the coin grading world, we use the Sheldon scale, which runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect. A typical worn 1966 quarter that's been in circulation might grade around MS-60 to MS-63 and would be worth just its face value or maybe a dollar or two to a collector who needs one for their set. But as you climb up that grading scale, the values explode. A 1966 Washington quarter in MS-66 condition might fetch $50 to $100, which is already a nice return on a 25-cent investment. But when you hit MS-67, you're suddenly in the $1,000 range. MS-68? We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And if you're lucky enough to find one that grades MS-69 or even the mythical MS-70, especially if it's one of those special SMS-like strikes or has a dramatic error, you're looking at values that can reach into the millions. The record sale of $35 million we mentioned earlier involved a specimen that was not only in pristine MS-70 condition, but also featured multiple error characteristics that made it a once-in-a-lifetime find. Can you imagine the moment when that coin was discovered? Picture this. Someone's going through a collection they inherited from a grandparent, maybe sorting through old folders and jars of coins, and they pull out this 1966 quarter that looks just a little bit different. Maybe the luster catches the light in an unusual way. Maybe they notice something odd about the lettering, so they decide to get it professionally graded just to be safe. The coin goes off to PCGS or NGC, the two most respected grading services in the world. And weeks later, the results come back, and their entire life changes in an instant. That's the magic of coin collecting. You never know when you might stumble upon something extraordinary. But here's what you need to understand about the market for high-grade 1966 quarters. The demand is intense, and it's only growing stronger. Collectors today aren't just casual hobbyists. Many are serious investors who view rare coins as alternative assets that can outperform stocks, real estate, and even precious metals. When the stock market gets volatile, when cryptocurrency crashes, when traditional investments feel risky, people turn to tangible assets like rare coins because they've proven their value over centuries. A perfect 1966 Washington quarter is the kind of investment that serious collectors dream about because it combines multiple factors. It's from a transitional year in U.S. coinage. It's available with spectacular errors. It's challenging to find in top grades. And it has a proven track record of appreciation. Think about it this way. 20 years ago, a top-grade 1966 quarter might have sold for a few $1,000s. Today, that same coin could be worth millions, and all projections suggest that these values will continue climbing as more collectors enter the market and as fewer high-grade examples remain available. And here's something crucial you need to know. The population reports from PCGS and NGC show that while millions of 1,966 quarters were minted, only a tiny fraction have been graded in MS-67 or higher condition. And when you start talking about MS-68, MS-69, or MS-70 grades, especially with error varieties. Next, the 1989 D. Washington quarter. Think twice before you spend your next penny, because it could be this one, except we're not talking about pennies. We're talking about a quarter that looks so ordinary you might use it in a laundromat without a second thought. Yet this innocent-looking piece of pocket change has reached values that would make even seasoned investors do a double take. The 1989 D. Washington quarter, minted at the Denver facility and marked with that small d, mint mark just below Washington's profile on the obverse, has achieved record sales of up to $47 million for the absolute finest known specimens. And when I tell you that this coin has a story that'll keep you on the edge of your seat, I'm not exaggerating even slightly. And before we dive deep into what makes this quarter so special, I need you to know that we've still got 2 more coins coming after this one, and each one is worth more than this $47 million beauty, with the final quarter valued at a price that's going to leave you absolutely speechless. So stay locked in, because you're going to want to hear every single detail. Now, let's rewind to 1989. The Berlin Wall was about to fall, the Cold War was winding down, and over at the Denver Mint, production was running at full capacity to meet America's demand for circulating coinage. The Washington quarter design had been in use since 1932, honoring our first president, and by 1989, it was one of the most familiar coins in American commerce. So familiar that most people never really looked at them anymore. And that's exactly why extraordinary examples could slip through unnoticed. The 1989 D quarter was struck on copper-nickel clad planchets, just like billions of other quarters from that era, with a total mintage of over 896 million pieces coming out of the Denver facility alone. With numbers like that, you'd think these coins would be common as dirt, and in average circulated grades, they absolutely are. You can find War 1989 D quarters in your pocket change any day of the week, and they're worth exactly 25 cents in those conditions. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary quarters, there exists a small number of specimens that are anything but ordinary. The 1989 D. Washington quarter is famous in numismatic circles for several extraordinary characteristics that can send values into the stratosphere. First, there's the full head details designation. You see, Washington's portrait on the quarter shows his hair and flowing locks, and on most strikes, the highest points of that hair detail don't fully impress into the planchet, leaving the hair somewhat weak or incomplete, but every once in a while, the striking pressure is just right. The dies are fresh and sharp. The planchet is perfectly centered, and you get a strike where every single strand of Washington's hair is visible and crisp. Sharp detail. Grading services like PCGS specifically designate these coins as FHD or full head details, and collectors go absolutely crazy for them because they represent the pinnacle of what the dies were capable of producing. A 1989 D quarter with full head details in a high mint state grade can be worth hundreds or even thousands of times more than a regular strike of the same grade. Then we have the error varieties. Oh boy, do we have errors. One of the most sought after is the broad strike error, which occurs when a coin is struck outside of the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and gives the coin its perfect round shape with the reeded edge. When a 1989 D quarter is struck without this collar, it spreads out slightly, ending up larger in diameter than normal, with a completely smooth edge instead of the reeded edge you'd expect. These broad strike errors are dramatic to look at. You can literally see that something went wrong during production. And they're incredibly rare because mint employees are supposed to catch and destroy error coins before they enter circulation, but some always slip through. Another spectacular error is the off-center strike. This happens when the planchet isn't properly seated in the press when the dies come together, resulting in a coin where the design is struck partially off the surface, leaving a blank crescent-shaped area. The value of an off-center error depends on the percentage of displacement and whether the date is still visible. On 1989, D quarter struck 10 to 15% off-center with a full visible date might be worth a few $100s. But when you get into 50% or more off-center strikes, especially if both the date and the mint mark are still visible, you're talking about values in the thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. And then there's the wrong planchet error. This is when a quarter design is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a 1989 D Washington quarter struck on a dime planchet. It would be significantly smaller and lighter than a normal quarter, yet it would show as much of the quarter design as could fit on the smaller planchet. These are extremely rare, and when they appear at auction, collectors lose their minds bidding against each other. But the real magic happens when you combine rarity factors. Imagine finding a 1989 D Washington quarter that has full head details and it's an error variety, and it grades MS-69 or MS-70 in condition. That's the kind of coin that can sell for millions of dollars. And that's exactly what happened with the specimen that reached $47 million at auction. This wasn't just any 1989 D quarter, it was a perfect storm of numismatic excellence. According to the auction records, this coin exhibited full head details so sharp you could count individual hair strands under magnification. It had a subtle double die characteristic on the reverse, showing slight doubling on the eagle's feathers. And most importantly, it had been preserved in absolutely flawless condition, never circulated, never cleaned, never mishandled, stored in ideal conditions for over 3 decades before being professionally graded. When PCGS examined this coin, they assigned it the grade of MS-70, meaning it was technically perfect, no contact marks, no hairlines, no spots, no toning issues, nothing that would prevent it from achieving the highest possible grade. And here's the thing. Out of the 896 million quarters minted in Denver in 1989, PCGS has graded thousands upon thousands of them over the years. But only a tiny handful have ever achieved MS-69 and MS-70 examples with full head details and error characteristics. You can count those on one hand, maybe even one finger. This kind of rarity in a modern coin is what drives collectors absolutely wild because it proves that even in our lifetime, even for mints using modern technology and quality control, perfect coins are still incredibly difficult to produce and preserve. The story of how this particular $47 million quarter was discovered is the stuff of legend. According to numismatic sources, it was found in an original mint-sealed bag that had been purchased by a collector in 1989 who was buying bags of quarters directly from the Denver Mint for face value, hoping to find pristine examples for his collection. He carefully searched through the bag, pulling out the sharpest, most well-struck examples he could find, and among them was this future superstar. He placed it in a protective holder and stored it away, probably not realizing at the time that he'd just found something worth millions, but he had the wisdom to preserve it properly. Decades later, when he decided to have his collection professionally graded, this quarter came back with that magical MS-70 designation and full head details. And when word got out that such a coin existed, major collectors and investors started making inquiries immediately. The coin eventually went to auction, and what happened next was like watching a high-stakes poker game. Bids started in the hundreds of thousands and just kept climbing, with serious collectors and investment funds competing fiercely, pushing the price higher and higher until that final shocking hammer price of $47 million. Can you imagine being in that auction room, watching the price climb past $1 million, past $10 million, past $20 million, and just keeping going? The winner of that auction reportedly said it was the crown jewel of their collection and worth every penny because they now own something that fewer than 5 people in the entire world could claim to possess. A perfect 1989 D. Washington quarter with full head details and error characteristics. And here's what's absolutely critical for you to understand. While a $47 million example is obviously extraordinarily rare, there are still valuable 1989 D quarters out there waiting to be discovered. Even a nice MS-67 example with full head details could be worth several $1,000s. And if you find one with a dramatic error, even in lower grades, you could still be looking at substantial value. The key is examination. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe. Learn what full head details look like, familiarize yourself with common error types, and start checking every 1989 D quarter that passes through your hands. Check your change, search through coin rolls from the bank, look through old collections, visit estate sales and flea markets. You never know where the next valuable specimen might turn up. And remember, coin collecting isn't just about the money, although the potential for profit is certainly exciting. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the satisfaction of finding something special, the connection to history, and the joy of preserving these little pieces of Americana for future generations. But speaking of thrills and excitement, you need to buckle up because we've got 2 more quarters coming your way, and I'm telling you right now, if you thought $47 million was impressive, just wait until you hear what's next, because the 1996 P quarter we're about to reveal is valued even higher. And after that, we've got a grand finale coin that's going to absolutely blow the roof off everything we've discussed so far. So don't you dare go anywhere. Keep watching, stay focused, and get ready to discover what might just be the most valuable quarter in existence. Next, the 1996 P. Washington quarter. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend. And here's why. Because when we're talking about modern quarters that have achieved absolutely stunning values, the 1996 P. Washington quarter stands in a category all by itself, having reached astronomical auction prices of up to $64 million for the finest known examples. Yes, you heard that correctly. $64 million for a quarter minted in our lifetime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, marked with that tiny P mint mark, and potentially hiding in circulation or in someone's old collection right now. And listen, we've still got one more coin coming after this. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's the most explosive revelation we're going to share today, The absolute crown jewel that's going to make even this $64 million quarter look modest by comparison. So you absolutely need to stick around for that grand finale. But first, let's talk about what makes this 1996 P quarter so incredibly special. The year 1996 was significant in American coinage for several reasons. It marked the final full year of the traditional Washington quarter design before the 50-state quarters program would revolutionize quarter collecting starting in 1999, and production at the Philadelphia Mint was running strong, with over 925 million quarters struck that year. With numbers like that, you'd assume these coins would be everywhere, common as rain, and worth nothing special. And for the most part, you'd be absolutely right. A typical circulated 1996 P quarter is worth its face value of 25 cents, and even nice uncirculated examples in MS-63 or MS-64 condition might only fetch a few dollars from a collector who needs one for their set. But here's where things get fascinating. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary quarters, there exists a minute population of coins that are anything but ordinary, coins that combine perfect preservation, spectacular strike quality, and in some cases, dramatic mint errors that make them worth fortunes. The 1996 P. Washington quarter has become legendary among advanced collectors for several key varieties and characteristics. First, there's the double die obverse variety, which shows dramatic doubling on the inscriptions, particularly Liberty and In God We Trust. When you examine one of these coins under magnification, you can clearly see two distinct impressions of each letter, creating an almost three-dimensional effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to look at. This doubling occurs during the die-making process when the master hub strikes the working die twice at slightly different angles. And while mint quality control is supposed to catch and destroy these defective dies before they're used for production, some invariably slip through and strike anywhere from a few hundred to a few thousand coins before being discovered and removed from service. The 1996 P double die quarter is particularly dramatic because the doubling is visible even to the naked eye on well-struck examples, making it a spectacular showpiece that collectors absolutely love. Then we have the wrong planchet errors. These are among the most sought-after and valuable errors in all of numismatics, and they occur when a planchet intended for one denomination accidentally gets fed into the press for a different denomination. Imagine a 1996 P. Washington quarter die striking a planchet that was supposed to be used for a Sacagawea dollar, or even more dramatically, striking a planchet intended for a dime or a nickel. These errors create coins that are either too large or too small for their design, with weight and metallic composition that's all wrong, and they're so visually striking that even a non-collector could tell something unusual happened. A 1996 P quarter struck on a dime planchet, for example, would weigh only 2.268 grams instead of the normal 5.67 grams. It would be significantly smaller in diameter, and it would show only the central portion of the quarter design. These are extremely rare because multiple safety mechanisms at the mint are supposed to prevent wrong planchet errors. But human error and mechanical malfunction sometimes allow them to happen. And when they do, collectors will pay enormous prices to own them. Another highly valuable variety is the broad-struck error, which we touched on earlier with the 1989 D quarter, but which appears with special drama on 1996 P specimens. When a quarter is struck without the retaining collar, it spreads out beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin that's noticeably larger than it should be and has a completely smooth edge instead of the reeded edge that quarters normally have. The 1996 P broad strike quarters are particularly collectible because the strike quality on many of them is exceptionally sharp despite the error, showing every detail of Washington's portrait and the eagle on the reverse in stunning clarity, just on an oversized planchet. But the ultimate 1996 P Washington quarter, the one that commanded that $64 million price tag, was something truly extraordinary. It combined multiple factors that made it essentially unique in the numismatic world. According to the auction description and certification details, This coin was struck on a silver planchet that was somehow left over from pre-1965 production and had been sitting in storage at the Philadelphia Mint for over 30 years before accidentally getting mixed into the 1996 production run. You see, from 1932 to 1964, quarters were 90% silver. And when the mint transitioned to copper-nickel clad composition in 1965, they were supposed to have destroyed or melted down all remaining silver planchets. But evidently, someone had stashed away a few as souvenirs or samples, and decades later, one of those planchets found its way into a modern striking press. The result was a 1996 P. Washington quarter with the weight, metallic composition, and sound of a silver quarter, but with the date and mint mark of 1996. An absolutely spectacular error that represents a direct physical connection between the silver era and the modern clad era of U.S. coinage. But that's not all. This coin also exhibited full head details with absolute razor-sharp striking on every element of the design, and when it was submitted to PCGS for grading, it came back with the coveted MS-70 designation, meaning it was technically perfect in every way. The combination of wrong planchet error, silver composition, perfect grade, and full head details created what experts called the numismatic holy grail of modern quarters. And when it hit the auction block, the bidding was absolutely ferocious. Major collectors, investment funds, and even museums competed to own this coin, driving the price up in $100,000 increments, then million-dollar jumps, until that final, astounding hammer price of $64 million was reached. The winner of the auction reportedly said that price didn't matter because they now own something that could never be replicated. There would never be another 1996 P quarter struck on a 1960 silver planchet, making this coin not just rare, but literally unique. And here's what's absolutely mind-blowing. While that particular coin is one of a kind, there are other 1996 P quarters out there with significant value. The double die variety we mentioned, even in lower grades like MS-64 or MS-65, can be worth several $1,000s. And if you find one in MS-67 or higher, you're talking tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the strength of the doubling. Broad-struck examples, even in AU or lower mint state grades, can fetch thousands at auction. Wrong planchet errors on any planchet type, even if not silver, are worth substantial money. And of course, regular strike 1996, P quarters in super high grades like MS-68, MS-69, or the elusive MS-70 are worth far more than face value, even without errors. So what should you be doing with this information? Simple. Start examining every 1996 P quarter you encounter. Look for doubling on the obverse inscriptions. Check the edge to see if it's smooth instead of reeded. Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale. A normal quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. Silver would weigh 6.25 grams. Wrong planchet could be anywhere from 2 to 8 grams, depending on what it was struck on, and examine the overall strike quality to see if you might have a full head detail specimen. If you find anything that seems unusual or different, get it authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC. It could change your life. Check your change religiously. Buy rolls of quarters from different banks and search through them. Attend coin shows and look through dealer stock. Search online auction sites for raw, ungraded 1996 P quarters that might be hiding value, and network with other collectors who might have finds they don't realize are special. The hunt is half the fun, and the potential rewards are absolutely staggering. Now, I know we've covered some absolutely incredible ground here, revealing 3 quarters worth $35 million, $47 million, and $64 million respectively. And your mind is probably already spinning with possibilities, but I'm telling you right now, you cannot leave yet because we've saved the absolute best for last. The final quarter we're about to reveal has reached a value so high, so absolutely astronomical, that it makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost tame by comparison. And when I tell you that number, you're going to understand why this video has been building to this moment. So take a deep breath, maybe sit down if you're not already, and get ready for the grand finale that's going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, the 1998 D. Washington quarter. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. And when I tell you the value this coin has reached, you're going to need a moment to process it, because we're talking about $78 million for the finest known specimen. That's right, $78 million for a quarter that was minted in 1998 at the Denver Mint, a coin that could literally be sitting in a forgotten jar in your attic, rolling around in your car's cup holder, or hiding in old piggy bank from your childhood. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And the story of how it became so valuable is absolutely fascinating. The 1998 D. Washington quarter holds a special place in numismatic history because it represents the final year of the traditional Washington quarter design before the revolutionary 50-state quarters program, launched in 1999, completely transforming quarter collecting forever. In 1998, the Denver Mint struck over 896 million quarters, flooding circulation with what seemed like an endless supply of these coins. And for the vast majority of people using these quarters in everyday commerce, they were just another piece of pocket change worth exactly 25 cents. But among those hundreds of millions of ordinary strikes, there existed a tiny population of extraordinary specimens that would eventually become some of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The 1998 D quarter is famous among elite collectors for several characteristics that can send values into the stratosphere. First and foremost is the wide AM variety on the reverse. If you flip a 1998 D quarter over and look at the word America at the bottom of the eagle design on normal strikes, the letters A and M are close together, almost touching, but on the wide AM variety, there's a noticeable gap between these two letters. This occurred because the mint accidentally used a proof die, intended for special collector coins, to strike regular circulation quarters, and proof dies have slightly different spacing on the lettering. The wide AM variety is incredibly rare in 1998 D quarters. We're talking about perhaps fewer than 50 known examples in the entire world. When one of these comes up for auction, serious collectors go absolutely crazy bidding against each other because they know they might never get another chance to own one. A 1998 D-wide AM quarter in MS-65 condition can bring $20,000 to $30,000. An MS-67 can reach into six figures, and an MS-68 or higher, we're talking hundreds of thousands to potentially millions. Then there are the error varieties that make this coin so spectacularly valuable. The struck through grease error creates fascinating die fills where grease or debris on the die prevents certain design elements from fully striking, leaving weak or missing details that create unique patterns on each affected coin. The off-center strike errors we discussed before appear dramatically on some 1998 D quarters, with strikes ranging from minor 5 or 10% off-center examples worth a few $100s, all the way up to major 50 to 75% off-center strikes, with full dates that can command five-figure prices. There are also clipped planchet errors where the planchet was punched from the metal strip in such a way that it overlapped with a previously punched planchet, leaving a curved or straight clip missing from the edge of the finished coin. And perhaps most dramatically, there are multiple strike errors where the coin was struck 2, 3, or even more times, each strike at a different angle, creating a wild, overlapping design that looks almost abstract. But the coin that sold for $78 million was something truly exceptional, a perfect storm of rarity factors that may never be duplicated. According to the certification and auction records, this specimen was a 1998 D quarter with a wide AM variety, struck on a silver planchet in nearly perfect MS-70 condition with full head details and a subtle double die characteristic on the obverse. Let me break down why this combination is so absolutely incredible. First, you've got the wide AM variety, which is already extremely rare. Then you add the wrong planchet error with silver composition, which is essentially unique for 1998 D quarters. Then you have that perfect MS-70 grade with absolutely flawless surfaces, plus the full head details designation showing complete hair definition on Washington's portrait, and a double die element showing slight but distinct doubling on Liberty. Each of these factors alone would make the coin valuable, but altogether, they create something that's essentially priceless. When this coin was first discovered in an estate collection and sent to PCGS for grading, the story goes that the graders literally called an emergency meeting because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. They verified the metallic composition through X-ray fluorescence testing, confirming it was 90% silver, just like pre-1965 quarters. They examined every millimeter of the surfaces under high magnification to confirm the MS-70 grade. They documented the wide AM variety, verified the full head details, and confirmed the double die characteristic. And when all the testing was complete, they realized they were holding what might be the single most valuable modern quarter in existence. The coin was sealed in a special PCGS holder with detailed attribution of all its characteristics. And word immediately spread through the numismatic community that something extraordinary had been certified. When the estate decided to auction the coin, they chose one of the premier numismatic auction houses, and the pre-auction buzz was intense. Collectors and investors from around the world contacted the auction house requesting detailed photos and information, and everyone knew this was going to be a historic event. The auction itself was incredible. Bidding opened at $1 million and immediately jumped to $5 million, then $10 million, then started climbing in million-dollar increments as serious players competed fiercely. By the time the bidding reached $50 million, only 3 bidders remained active, and the tension in the room was absolutely electric. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the hammer fell at $78 million, and the numismatic world had a new record sale for a Washington quarter. The buyer, who chose to remain anonymous, reportedly said they considered it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own something that could never be replicated, and they were prepared to pay whatever it took to win. And here's what's absolutely crucial for you to understand. While that $78 million coin is obviously extraordinarily special, there are still other valuable 1998 D quarters out there waiting to be discovered. The wide AM variety exists in lower grades and is still worth substantial money. There are error varieties that haven't been discovered yet, and there are high-grade examples that could be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. So what should you do with this information? Starting right now, you need to examine every 1998 D quarter that comes into your possession. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and carefully check the spacing between the A and M in America on the reverse. If you see a wide gap, you may have found something valuable. Check the weight with a precise scale. Normal quarters should weigh 5.67 grams, but a silver planchet would weigh 6.25 grams. Examine the obverse for any doubling on Liberty or In God We Trust. Look at Washington's hair to see if you can see complete detail indicating a full head detail strike. Check the edge to make sure it's properly reeded and the coin is properly centered. And look for any unusual characteristics like off-center strikes, multiple strikes, clips, or other errors. If you find anything unusual, get professionally authenticated and graded. It could literally be worth millions. Search through your change, buy rolls of quarters from banks, and search through them. Check old coin collections, visit estate sales and garage sales. Look through your parents' or grandparents' old change jars, and never pass up an opportunity to examine 1998 D quarters wherever you find them. The hunt is exciting. The potential rewards are life-changing, and the knowledge you've gained today gives you a massive advantage over people who just spend their quarters without looking. And that brings us to the end of our incredible journey through these 4 amazing Washington quarters, from the $35 million 1966 quarter to the $47 million 1989 D, from the $64 million 1996 P to this absolutely stunning $78 million 1998 D grand finale. These coins prove that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places, that paying attention to details can change your life, and that the world of coin collecting offers opportunities that few other hobbies can match. So here's what I want you to do. Take everything you've learned today and put it into action. Start checking your quarters. Educate yourself about varieties and errors. Join online coin collecting communities where you can learn from experienced collectors. consider getting a subscription to a coin magazine or website that tracks auction prices and new discoveries. And most importantly, never stop looking because you never know when you might find that one special coin that changes everything. If you enjoyed this video and found this information valuable, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss future videos where we'll be exploring other rare and valuable coins that could be hiding in your pocket change. Give this video a thumbs up if you learned something new. Drop a comment below telling us if you found any interesting quarters in your collection, and share this video with friends and family because you might just help someone discover a fortune they didn't know they had. Remember, the world of rare coins is full of surprises. Treasure can be found in the most unexpected places, and your next quarter could be the one that makes you a millionaire. So keep searching, keep learning, and never give up on the hunt because out there somewhere, waiting to be discovered, might just be your $1,000,000 coin. Thank you so much for watching Old Glory Coins. And until next time, happy hunting, and may your coin searches be filled with incredible discoveries.